One of the most recognizable teams in contemporary animation, Rick and Morty are known for their crazy, unpredictable escapades in a variety of different worlds. Morty may appear to be a naive and trusting companion, but he could actually be very cruel to his grandfather Rick. Morty has stayed by Rick's side through it all, willingly joining in on their many adventures between dimensions. However, as the series has continued, Morty has gone from being an onlooker to an active player in Rick's plans, with frequently comedic but also tragic results. Even though Rick is the more ethically gray of the two, Morty has made his share of mistakes. Over the course of the show's run, Rick and Morty's relationship has developed into something nuanced and multifaceted. Rick appears to be the drunken, immoral grandfather who takes Morty on risky and foolish exploits. Morty, on the other hand, is Rick's moral compass while being naive, hesitant, and innocent. It's becoming increasingly unclear which of these two characters is which as the show proceeded. There have been times when Morty has stood up to his grandfather and when Rick has shown vulnerability and affection for Morty. The impact that Rick's way of life has on his loved ones, especially Morty, is a major theme of the series. As Rick's actions have consequences, Morty is frequently put in dangerous situations, such as being pursued by the Galactic Federation of fighting terrible alternate realities of himself. Morty's gradual but increasing complicity with Rick's plans throughout the series raises ethical concerns about their friendship. However, there are times when the two characters show genuine devotion to one another. Rick has put himself in danger to shield Morty, and Morty has always been there to defend his friend. There's an evident connection between the two characters despite the fact that their relationship is unstable and often destructive. The relationship of our two heroes can be the subject of many disputes. Usually, it was Rick who was cold to his grandson and did everything to achieve his goal. However, there were moments when Morty didn't owe him anything. 1. Not helping Rick to clone himself. In the Season 4 premiere, Edge of Tomorrow, Rick Die Rickpeat, Morty and Rick go to Forbodaloon Prime to collect death crystals. Unfortunately, the whole expedition did not go smoothly after Morty decided to take advantage of Rick's inattention to take one of the Death Stones. Seduced by a miraculous death in the arms of his beloved Jessica, he leads to the tragic end of their journey. Morty crashes spaceship as a result, and his grandfather dies. The situation is made worse because instead of cloning Rick, he decides to follow his dream death. Attempts to convince him by Rick's hologram created for such an event seem to be in vain. Ultimately, Sanchez, being the genius he is, manages to clone himself in another reality, and then comes back to his own to save Morty from what could have been a world-ending disaster. 2. Shooting Rick. We can only imagine how much Rick's schemes must annoy Morty. The guy is constantly 4 or 5 steps ahead of everyone in the room, including his little sidekick. However, there have been times when Morty's dissatisfaction is bubbled over, most notably in the Season 3 premiere, The Rick Shank Redemption. Even though Rick manages to kill most of the interdimensional Council of Ricks when he carries out his plan to spite the Galactic Federation, the last remaining Rick, recognizable by his weird, pointy, obviously evil hair, gets the upper hand by holding Summer hostage. Rick C-137 says he would be willing to end things here and now, allowing the other Rick to kill Summer so he can get a clear shot. Morty obviously didn't like this, so he decides to step in and takes Rick at gunpoint, with the gun Rick gave him telling him he'll need it later. After Rick, Summer, and the other Rick mock Morty, insinuating that he is too dim to realize the gravity of the situation, Morty goes crazy and shoots Rick C-137 in the head, allegedly killing him. The other Rick relaxes his guard long enough for the real Rick, who is not dead, to kill him. After this situation, Rick C-137 points to a note he has taped to his gun that reads, "Fake gun, shoot me in standoff." From Morty's behavior, we can safely conclude that he didn't even notice that note. 3. Morty stabbed Rick in the back. In Season 6, Episode 9, A Rick in King Mortars, we witness Morty accepting a sword from the Sun Knights. The story takes a strange turn when Morty defeats the Sun King while trying to escape the Knights' tradition of cutting off his manhood. In the Season 6 finale, Rick and Morty argue, during which Rick makes Morty realize how he treated him. Sanchez felt betrayed when his grandson accepted the sword from the Sun Knights against his will. He believes he was mistreated and even called boring. He explains that he's been betrayed in his reasoning. He trusted Morty, and Morty stopped respecting him. At first, we could get the impression that Rick Sanchez is a guy devoid of emotions and not caring about others. Over time, however, it turns out that he really cares about his loved ones. Although he can't always show it, he tries to care for them in his own twisted way. Rick is a proud and devoted person. He can be easily hurt by testing his loyalty or disrespecting him, as Morty did. 4. Morty is prepared to kill Rick when aliens invade their home. The Smith family is invaded by alien parasites in the second season episode Total Recall. The parasites trick the family into thinking they have known them forever by implanting fond but false memories of their time together. As they try to remember who is genuine, Rick, Morty, Jerry, Beth, and Summer soon turn on each other. Morty almost kills Rick with a laser rifle. In time, he realizes that parasites can only instill positive memories, and everyone with whom he also has negative ones is real. Fortunately, both characters make it through the event and go on to do horrible things to each other for the rest of the series. 5. Morty abandoning Rick. Bird Person confronts Morty over his treatment of Rick in the second season's Get Swifty. Aliens pose a threat to Earth when they kidnap the planet and make its inhabitants compete in a singing contest. The success of Rick and Morty's debut single belies the fact that they have a difficult time in the studio thereafter. Morty takes the portal gun and escapes. After several attempts, he ends up on Bird Person's planet and is rescued by him. In the midst of a small altercation, Bird Person manages to convince Morty to return, so Rick and his grandson give one more winning performance and save the planet. Doesn't seem like there's too much love lost between the two now, does it? Well, in his defense, Morty was scared out of his mind, and Rick wasn't exactly being the consoling grandparent, but everyone knows that Rick isn't the sort of person to do that. 6. Morty planning to leave Rick in prison. During a wedding party, to which the most wanted criminals were invited, there is an attempt to detain the wedding guests by the Galactic Federation. Tammy turns out to be not an ordinary earthly teenager, but an agent working undercover. As a result of the situation, the Smiths run away from the wedding and start their wander around space in order to find a new home. Rick turns himself into the Galactic Federation and secures his family's safe return home. He himself is transported to a maximum security prison. We start the third season by trying to interrogate and dig up from Sanchez's memory the equations that will allow him to build a portal gun. Even though Rick is in prison, and trying to extract information from him may turn his brain to mush. At the same time, Morty didn't even think about saving his grandfather. It was Summer who wanted to get him out and bring him home at any cost. Morty says they ought to forget about Rick and let him suffer the consequences of his actions. 7. Ignores Rick's pain. Famous cartoon characters who have become known for their catchphrases include Bugs Bunny, Bart Simpson, and Rick Sanchez. In the first season episode, Me Seeks and Destroy, Rick made a joke about the Me Seeks box, which is supposed to solve simple problems. The phrase was later revived in Raising Gazorp Bazorp, and it has since become a running gag. Rick throws a party at Smith's house in the season 1 finale on which keeps saying, "Wubba lubba dub dub." Bird Person drops by the party and inquires if Morty understands the significance of Rick's catchphrase. Morty thinks the statement is meaningless, but Bird Person explains that in his language, it has a significant meaning. In its original context, the phrase "Wubba lubba dub dub" meant, "I am in great pain, please help me." He also added that Rick is indeed suffering and therefore needs to daze himself by any means available. For the time being at least, Morty's resentment towards his grandfather's careless and rash actions is not assuaged by this discovery.